Okay, hi everybody. This is going to be my quick tutorial, or maybe not so quick, on how I use Inkscape and DesignSpace from Cricut to cut out shortcuts for making model airplanes using my Cricut Maker machine. The Maker is good at cutting 1/16 and 3/32 balsa, which is good enough for the small planes I build. This isn't going to be a how-to for using Inkscape or DesignSpace. This is a very targeted tutorial to show how I do it myself to get what I'm looking for. I'm sorry for the audio. I'm just using a cheap pair of headphones, and the video is just the video capture and video editing software that comes free with Windows 10. So it's not going to be smooth or as fancy as commercial programs. But this will be easy enough for you to use to figure out how to make it for yourself. So as you can see, I have Inkscape open. So no matter what I'm going to be doing, I always want to make sure that I'm using units that's easy for me to think in. So I'm going to set all my units to inches. Which makes it easy for me to figure out in my head what I'm looking at. So I have Inkscape. I have to have the file I'm going to copy. So for this, I downloaded a copy of an old plan from Veron of a Aeronca Champ. That has to be open in a different window, and we'll jump over there to look at that. Okay, this is the PDF I'm using from an old Veron plan. And I don't need everything. I just want all my formers and bulkheads and such. Oh, I didn't want to do that. What I want to do is just copy here. And this is what I will paste into Inkscape. Okay, so now we're back to Inkscape. I will just paste the file back in place. And I know that this is a 3x12 sheet here and a 3x12 sheet here. So that'll be about 7x12 is what I'm looking at. So I'll come over here and make this 7. Nope, I'll make that 12 width, and then 7 high. And I will use this to close the sidebar. And we can see that this, it's approximately 7x12, not quite. We'll make it a little wider. Okay, so that's about right. But if I look, I see that this is at an angle. So what I can do is when I select this, if I have my select and transform objects key up here and click on it, I click on it once and I can zoom in and out. But I'll just leave it to the right size. If I click on this a second time, I can now rotate. So let's just go ahead and rotate so that looks about parallel. That looks good to me. So now we have the PDF we want to copy. Next thing we want to use is our Bezier tool. That's what I use to make all my points and vary in my curves. So I'm looking at my drawing and I want to start somewhere. I notice I have a whole bunch of R4 ribs. So what I'm going to want to do is copy one of those or trace around it, and I'll use that as my master. I'll just make more copies and move them around where they need to be on the program. And it's important to pick one rib and use that as your master because, as you can see, this plan was hand-drawn 50, 60 years ago. So if you're to look at each one of those ribs and superimpose them, they'll all be just a little different. So that's why I'm going to use one R4 as my master, and I'll use that also to compare R3, R2, and R1 ribs along against. Okay, I popped back over to the PDF because I want to make 2 more observations off this plan before I start tracing. So I need to know the size of the cutouts for the spars and the leading and trailing edges. Everything is made out of 1/16 inch sheet for all the parts and for the leading and trailing edge. What I need to know is what the main spars are. Main spar is 1/8 inch by 1/16 inch. Okay, we're back to our Inkscape program, and I'm going to start on my R4 rib. So I want to expand this so it's easier to work on. So I have the cursor over it, and I will use my scroll wheel and my mouse and my control key. I hold my control key, I scroll up, and it expands the screen. So the fun part is we click on the Bezier tool, pick some point. I'll just start right here. Click on the first point, come over here and click on a second point. I'm going to go a little farther out. Click across to the next point, down, across, up, leading edge, top of the spar cutout, so now I have my points, and it's hard to see in black. So I'm going to change that color. The way I do that is I come down to the color bar down here. I'll use red. So I'll hold down the Shift key and click on that. Now I have red. So you can see I wasn't really careful about where I made the point because I knew I was going to be moving it later. So we go from the Bezier tool up to our Edit Path by Node tool. So you can see all the different little nodes there. So click on that. Now you can see all those individual nodes. And again, I'm going to use my scroll wheel and my control key, make it a little larger. And I'm going to make those nice and parallel. And I said it's important before to know the rib size. So it's 1/16 inch by 1/4 inch. I'm sorry, that was 1/16 by 1/8 inch spars. So what I want to do is I want to measure across here to make sure it's 1/16 inch. And 1/16 inch is 0.0625 inches. So I'm going to do 0.07 inches. So I come down here to my ruler, click on that, and you can see a little X popped up. I can just come straight across, and I'm 0.8, I wanted 0.07. So what I can do is I can just come back up here to my Edit Paths selection, And I'm just going to make that a little smaller. And I'm kind of clumsy, so we'll see how I do. Okay, that looks about parallel. Maybe a little off here. And we'll come back to our measure tool again. And we'll measure across. And I'm still at 0.08. I'm trying not to move too much. I have a tendency to overshoot when I'm doing this kind of thing. So that looks parallel still. Well, not quite. Sorry, this is about as exciting as it gets. Come back to my measure tool. Still 0.08. I'm not doing very well. So we'll move this side in. I don't want to get too tight because when you're working with 1/16 inch balsa, it's easy to damage the wood if you try and force a spar that's a little too wide. So we look up 0.07. Okay, so I have my 1/16 inch I wanted. Now we said it was 1/8 high, so I'll go up here. 1/8 inch is 0.125. You can see here it's 0.13, so I'll call that good. Okay, using a little movie magic, I jumped around a bit. I just wanted to shorten this up just a hair. So now what I want to do is make this curve. And the way I do that is I just grab the center. We'll grab it right here. And you can move left and right until you have the curve. And if you need to, you can just adjust. And you can see I'm a little high here, so let's go ahead and bring this down some. And let's make this a little flatter up here. So that looks pretty good. So I'll come down here and make that straight down. And the forward leading edge and the rear trailing edge are both 1/4 by 1/16. So again, 1/16 here is 0.0625. I want it 0.07. So let's take a quick measurement and see what we have. 0.08, I'm a little high. So let's go ahead and bring this down. And measure it. Okay, so I'm at 0.07 inch. And of course it should be 0.25. So we'll just say, ooh, 0.32, that's kind of long. Sorry, no, 0.22 right here. 0.22, we want 0.25. So let's go to 0.26 so we have a little leeway. And I give a little bit more. Go to our measuring tool. Uh, 0.23, we're still a little short. Let's move this forward point up a little bit. We'll measure again. .24, we're almost there. Well, we'll leave it so that if it sticks out a little bit, it'll be a little more to fair in. That's close enough for me, and that looks a little off, so I'll bring it straight down. Okay, that's that front point. So now let's go over to the trailing edge. We'll just bring it over here. Okay, that looks about right. The reason I bring this out past where it stops on the drawing is just so that it is so sharp here, you got a little bit of wiggle room for when you round off that back end. So we need to make this match. We'll go ahead and just bring this over a little bit and bring it up to match. There we go. And again, 1/16, we want that about 0.07. And it is 0.07, and we want from here to be 0.25. And we don't want to go back to this point. We want to we're kind of long. We want it to be right about here. So let's bring that point in a little bit. And we'll move this back and see what we get. And yeah, that looks about right to me. And you can see it's right about even with the outside of that black line. So we have our height and our length right for our 1/4 by 1/16 trailing edge. So now let's just take a quick look, see if it looks good to us by doing Control and scrolling down. Yeah, it doesn't match the black lines very well, but like I said, this is all hand drawn a long time ago and copied and copied and copied. But by doing the measurements, we know this is the right depth, that's the right length, and that's the right length. So that's how I do my initial rib, and that's going to be my reference rib. Okay, now we have our reference. We have the fun part. We'll just use Control and scroll wheel to make this a little bit smaller. We're going to do the select. I want to copy this all around here. Next comes probably the key combination I use the most, which is a duplicate. So when I have it over this highlighted square, I do Control D for duplicate. And I now have, now we're going to use my second most favorite, Control Z, which is undo. So I do Control Z and it snaps back. I had the whole PDF highlighted rather than just the one rib. So now I have the one rib, I will do Control D again and move it up here. And you can see it's a little off here, but the mismatches are different on this rib. So let's do another Control D. Move it up to this one. And you can see the mismatch is a little different here. So when these are all hand drawn, each one of those ribs is drawn by hand, and now none of them exactly match. That's why I did one reference rib, so they will all be perfectly exact. So let's Control D, bring it down to this R4 rib, another Control D, bring it down, up, wrong again, so Control Z or Zulu, and then back in where I want to be. I'll highlight, Control D, I move it, and again you can see the mismatch is a little different on this rib. I'll zoom out a little bit. You can see I have to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more. So I'll Control Delta, and I'll move this over here. I'm having a hard time because it's trying to match these 2 points. So if you have that problem, just use your scroll wheel to enlarge the drawing. And I'm going to bring it over here a little farther. Because I have these 2 cuts overlapping. I don't want this cutting into that rib. So I'll move this one back just a hair. And it's not going to matter if it doesn't match the PDF, because we're going to be moving that out of the way and just show our rib profile later. So now we have all these upside down R4s. So I'm going to Control Delta, move it up, and I have my rotate up here at the top. So I will rotate 90 degrees and bring it down. Again, Control Delta. And bring it here. I'll do a Control Delta. I'm going to bring it down over here. And I know this gets repetitive, but it's necessary to make sure we get everything exactly the same. Control Delta. Up. I got my PDF, so I'll do Control Zulu. Put it back where I want it. Highlight. Control Delta. Move it down. Highlight. Control Delta. Move it down. Control Delta. Drat. And I believe this is the last of our R4 ribs. So Control scroll wheel to zoom out. Okay, so we have all of our R4s. Now, I said this is going to be our reference. So we have our R1, R2, and R3 ribs. If we look at our PDF, on the wing we have our R4 ribs and then an R3 rib. That makes the individual wing panels. The center section is made up of the R1s and R2s. But if you look closely, the spars for the center section do not match the spar of the wing panels. And that's intentional. They want this to overlap that when you're gluing it all together. but the trailing edge on all of these match. So that's going to be our reference point. So let's go ahead and go back to our Inkscape. Okay, we're back to Inkscape. And I know this is all kind of boring, and I wish I could make it more exciting, but I'm just not that exciting of a guy. Once we get through the wing ribs, that's going to be the most tedious part. Then I'll go over a couple more parts, and they'll demonstrate basically how we do everything, and you should be able to extrapolate from there how to do the rest of the drawing. So now we're going to do our R3s and R4s together. And it's easier for this next part to change to a different color. So we're going to use our Bezier tool right here. And we're going to expand our R3 rib. So Control scroll wheel. And I'll start the nose this time. Click the spar. Notice this is much wider. And I'm clicking at all the different points. And notice when I bring it here, the block turns red, and I click on that, and it tells me I've closed it all. So now that I have this, we said we don't want black. But since we're going to be doing some comparisons, we don't want red either. So let's pick a different color. I'll come down and I'll pick green. So I'll do Shift Green to get the outline. It's important you do Shift Green, and I'll show you why. We'll go back to black. And if I just clicked on green, I now have a solid, which isn't bad, it's just not what I want. So I'll click down here on white, and then I'll do my Shift Green. Okay, I have the green outline I want. I'll come up here to my Edit Paths, and we said this is 1/8 inch deep. 1/8 inch is 0.125, so we'll do 0.13. So we do a quick measurement. That's 0.15. It's a little deep. So notice I move this, that little dotted line moves up and down. I want that line not to move at all, so it tells me that my spar depth is the same on front and back. So I need to go up a little bit. So 0.125 was what I wanted. Let's do this side. 0.14. And 1.4, and I'm looking for 0.13. So up a hair, that's probably a little too much, but we'll see what we get. Yeah, it was 0.12, that's a little too much. Nope, 0.13, 0.13. Okay, so we have the right depth. Now the width. Remember I said we're going to have the 2 offset spars. Well, we have to have room for the spars from R4 ribs and also the R2 rib, the R1, R2. So each of those are 1/16, so I should have 1/8 apart. So this should be 1/8 of an inch. 1/8 of an inch being 0.125. We'll do again 0.13 if we can. So 0.14, and this one seems a little larger, 0.15. Okay, so let's bring this back a little bit. And we're gonna come back to this later. I'm trying to get general. The reason being, we're gonna compare this to our R4 rib, since we said R4 was the master. So let's just go ahead and finish doing all our fairing in, and then we'll come back to that. So let's do the front first. Let me just come down a little bit. And I click on that center green line. And I'm getting close. Doesn't have to be exact because I'm going to be changing it in a minute. Okay. Come back here. That's close. It's close. Okay, so this is my R3 rib. So I want to make sure that the R3 rib and the R4 rib shapes are the same. So I'm going to take this one. This just move off the side. Let's take an R4 and let's make a copy of it. Control Delta. And move it over here. Okay, so now I have them together. Let's expand that using Control Scroll Wheel. Oh, a little too much. And now I'm going to do a comparison between the two. This will be my master. This has to match the curve of that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my R3 and you can make it, I don't want to match. Well, I guess I can match at the top and work our way from there. So you can see they don't match that well. So let's go ahead and take our, let me click here on the green. And this is pretty cool. All I can do is do snap, 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 snap. Grab that green line and make it so it exactly matches, or as close as we can get. Same thing up here. And snap. And now we're going to grab this and make it nice and parallel. And let's see if we can make that curve a little better. So now, except for the spar cutout, R3 and R4 are identical. And that's what we wanted. That's why we had R4 as our reference rib. Now we'll just take our R4 rib. Oop, I didn't mean to do that. So again, let's go Control Z. Control Z undoes what you did last. And I'll do my select. Gonna select and just get out of the way. Now I don't need that anymore. I can just say delete, hit the delete key, and it's gone. That's one of my favorite keys when I'm working is delete, or if I made a mistake, Control Z brings it back. It's very forgiving. That Control Z is an awesome thing. But let's go ahead and make that go away. So I know that these are right. I know that these are right. I know the height's right. I just need this width to be 0.13. So I'll come over here and let's measure. 0.14 is a little wide. So I'll come here. Do a quick measurement. Still a little long. So again, we don't want to touch this one because we match that to our R4 rib. Oh, 0.13, 0.13. So it's exactly what I want. And if you're wondering why there's a gap here and not back here, that's because when I rotated the whole drawing, I didn't get it exactly level. And we can fix that later, but it's not really important. So I will use my control scroll wheel. I'm going to scroll down. Up a little more than I wanted to, but I just wanted to get to where I could see everything. So I'll control scroll wheel back up. Select using my select button. So I selected it. I hate when I do that. So I'm going to move it over now for my R3. You can see it trying to snap together like it did a minute ago, those other nodes. So we'll expand it a little. And now it's where we want it to be. Notice we also have another R3. So we will control delta. I hate when I do that. Control delta. Move it over. And then we'll use our rotate to rotate it 180 degrees. Then bring it back in. Okay. Okay, now that we've done R3, let's just jump up and do R1. So R1 and R2 are our center section ribs. And they're going to be very close, but they won't be exactly the same as our R4 rib. So I probably should have left the R4 reference rib off to the side, but we'll go ahead and do that now. I will select R4, and I would just move it off the side. Leave that there for now for our reference. Now let's do R1. If you remember, I was saying that the wing spars for the center section R1 and R2 are offset from R3 and R4, and we'll see that in a minute. So let's go ahead and do R1. We'll do our Bezier tool, and again we'll start at the front. And notice where R4 has that front leading edge cut out, R1 does not. So that's going to get to us in a couple minutes. We'll see that. So click, 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 and when it gets to red, I'm ready to close out the loop. Okay, let's pick a different color this time. Let's use the light blue. So shift, left click, now I have a light blue. So we'll try and match these up a little closer this time. I'll go to my edit, and let's zoom in a little bit. Okay, let's see if we can get that. And these need to be close. We'll do a little tweaking a little later. Okay. That one up there. Okay, it looks about right. So now we'll go ahead and move this over alongside our reference point, which is the R4 rib. And now I'm going to just superimpose. And they're close. This one's kind of at an angle. But notice we were saying that the center section spar is forward of the wing panel spar, and you can see right there. So now I'm going to start the back. Just snap, snap. Oh, sorry, wrong one. Let's get this back over again. Have to use my Edit Paths tool in the upper left. So now I can snap. So snap, snap, snap. That's snapped. I'll bring this up. And let's zoom in a little bit and get that right on. And here it's going to be a little different because you can see this is going to come all the way down to where that 1/4 by 1/8 would be. So let's zoom in a little here. Okay, let's bring this up a little bit. Bring that one up a little bit. And let's bring it over the side a little bit. There we go. I don't know what I did. I don't know this program that well, so let's just snap away from it real quick. And there we go. That's what I wanted to do. Like I said, I don't know anything about Inkscape other than what I've played around with, and this is not a good Inkscape tutorial. This is just showing what I do on mine that I am self-taught. Okay, let's go ahead and zoom out. Come over here. Well, let's do this. Let's make this match. There you go, that's pretty close. Close enough for the model we'll be making with this. So now I have to bring this in. I didn't quite want that, but as you can see, I'm not very good at this yet. So forgive me if I'm not very good at it just yet. Yeah, you get the idea. I'm just not that good with it. That's close. And when you do a little sanding later, you'll make it even better. And I just messed it up. Okay, it's close enough. The important part I want to notice is these two offsets. And I'm not going to worry about measuring these. If I was going to make this perfect for actually cutting it out, I would, but I'm just doing this to show you how I do it. So you see how I snap everything together to make the ribs match. So now that I've done that one, I'll move it back over. So I select. There we go. And I need to make a copy of it. Control Z, Control D, and then I will rotate and bring it in. Then finally this R2 one, I'll just go ahead and do this again. You can skip through the video and go wherever you want. I know this is getting really long. I'm gonna have to edit it down some, but I just want to show you how I did ribs and make sure everything was nice and just make sure everything was nice and aligned. So I'll do the R2 real quick, and I'll use dark blue for that one. So I'll do Bezier tool. Shift dark blue. Now Control scroll wheel up. Select. Make it close. Okay, so it looks good. Scroll out. Rotate it. Bring it down. Zoom in. And we're going to select. And we'll snap it together. And again, since the front has the static spar forward of the wing panel, that's like we want it. Let's bring this one down here. And that's my R2. So everything should be fine. I'm done with my ribs. I'll just move this one back. Select it. Actually, let's rotate it first. Zoom in. Drop it back. Now I have all my ribs done. I'm not going to do a whole lot more. I'm just going to show something that's a little more complicated. Like we'll do this one and this one just so you can see. And once we look at those, that should be pretty much the way for doing any of them. Okay, let's do these last two complicated shapes, and that should be good enough to show you how to do anything else on a drawing. So let's zoom in on this R4. Use our Bezier tool again. Start over here, just point, point. Okay, so I have all my cardinal points. I'll just do red again for this one. So shift, left click red. And now it's just using our edit button and cleaning things up the way we want. Now we have the hole for the rubber and the propeller. So we come over here and just do the simple. You can do a draw square, or you can do a draw circle or ellipse. We'll do that. And again, I got the PDF and not my drawing, so Control Z or Zulu. Select it. And it's almost the size, we can make it a little bit bigger. So now I have the hole for the propeller. And we'll zoom out, and we'll do this last one to demonstrate how to do this. So I'll do my Bezier tool again and click all of our points. And now, since it's a little bit of a compound curve, we'll just do a point here, so I can separate those. I close it out, and since I like red, I'll do Shift, red, and now I will pull in my curves using my edit paths. Go ahead and grab this and pull it in. And this may not look perfectly smooth, but if you look at the drawing in front of us, this is about 12, 14 inches. in reality, when you print that out or cut it out with your Cricut, that's going to be about 1.5 inches. So if it doesn't look completely smooth here, when you shrink it back down to size, it'll look nice. Okay, so that's how I would do a compound piece like this. And that's it for the drawing. You can figure out the rest and make a nice, pretty little SVG file. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to save. I probably should have been saving as I went along, but we'll save it as, and I'm going to use what I call my tutorial folder, and I'll call it tutorial. And normally when I'm doing this, after I draw each one of these, I'll do a save. I'll save 50 times, but at least I don't lose anything. Okay, so that's how we draw. Next, I'll go into how we do this in DesignScape, how we import it.